Good morning. Thank you for being here today. I am grateful for you and your presence here and for this community as we mourn together today. I am also grateful for all of those who are joining us online, on the live stream, all of those who, from wherever they happen to be in the world, are sending love and prayers, who are holding Rob in love and light. So greetings and welcome. For those of you who may be visiting for the first time today, we don't normally start with tears, but we have, as a community, lost someone very important to us this weekend. And while today is not a memorial service for Rob, that will come later, we are here to acknowledge both the beauty of the life he led and the sorrow with which we let him go. We stand on the homelands of the Dakota and Ojibwe nations. We honor with gratitude the people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and their ongoing contributions to this region. We acknowledge the ongoing injustices that we have committed against the Dakota and Ojibwe, and we wish to interrupt this legacy, beginning with acts of healing and honest storytelling about this place. This morning, we continue to worship both in person and online, a congregation and community gathered in time rather than a single place. May we all, wherever we are, enter into worship fully, not held back by fear or distraction or the unfamiliarity of new ways. Welcome whatever arises in your spirit during this time together. If this is your first time here, we invite you to complete a visitor card, which you can find in the pew in front of you, or you can go online to our website. And we hope that you will do so that we can get you more information about who we are and what we do here. Visitors and anybody else who wants to is also invited to attend Finding Yourself at Unity, which is a conversation each Sunday focused on a different topic about Unity Church. Today will be a general question and answer session held up in the Gannett room upstairs after the service, and anybody is welcome to join in that conversation. Also, after this morning's service, KP and I will be hosting just a space to be together up in the Ames Chapel. It will be a time of quiet, of prayer, of contemplation and of connection and community. And anybody is welcome to come and go as you wish. We'll be up in the chapel after the service. There's also going to be some snacks and goodies in the parish hall, along with information and other interesting things. So check that out before you leave today. And one last thing, the staff here at Unity will be holding a vigil, a time of gathering on Wednesday night, this Wednesday, the 27th, at 7 p.m. here in the sanctuary. Again, a time of prayer, of contemplation, of reflection, of community, of music, just a time for us to be together. So that will be Wednesday at 7 here in the sanctuary. And now let us enter into worship with the ringing of our bell.
There are those experiences in life that are burned into your consciousness. Those experiences continue to have an emotional impact long after they happened and have the capacity to shape how one looks and deals with life. One of those experiences for me was knocking on the door of the old couple who lived next door. Now, a little background is necessary. My parents got along well with most of our neighbors, but in this case, there was some bad blood. Mr. and Mrs. Motes had taken my dad to court for operating his business out of our garage. And as a child, you knew to keep your distance. You didn't just retrieve a ball that accidentally rolled onto their property. They seemed to appear instantaneously when this happened, and there were scowls, harsh words for these careless kids, and the ball often was never to be seen again. Direct interactions with them were always fraught. Fraught might be too nice of a word. We were scared of them. Curious then, at some point in my late teens, I was able to pull all my self-righteous, youthful courage together and knock on their back door. I don't even remember the precipitating event. I think I just wanted to know why they were so angry at me. Much to my surprise, they invited me into their home. Believe me, that was scary. But I remember sitting around their kitchen table in this dark, somewhat dreary space and listening to them share their worldview with this young teen. This was in the late 60s. They were probably the age I am now. Their worldview was very bleak. The change they saw around them was obviously scary. The world they knew and relied on was collapsing around them. They had lost hope in the world ever returning to what it had been before, the way they thought the world should be. And young people like myself did not hold much promise for them. In fact, we were part of the problem. As you can tell, this event has stuck with me as one of those key memories from my youth. I remember coming out of that encounter with at least one clear thought. I never wanted to be as fearful and angry about the world around me. I wanted to have a different worldview, but that can be hard. Change is coming on fast, perhaps even faster than it did in the 60s. Change is happening every day. It demands much of us. It demands we change. It demands we be the change. These days, I continue to hear Rob, our former minister, share the words of Octavia Butler. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Come, let us worship together.
We set aside a moment to expand the caring ministry of this congregation. Together we recognize the cycle of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the center of this and every sacred community. We stand at the side of parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is caring for children. We stand with those who live with grief or chronic pain, with illnesses seen and unseen, with mental disability or addiction. We pray for our neighbors in prison, for those who care for family members in ill health, and for those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty. Our lives are blessed by those who knowingly and with curiosity and courage face their final days, and by those who rise above heartbreak to challenge oppression in all its forms. We pray for those in harm's way, for the wisdom and strength of the leaders of the world, and for the people of this courageous congregation, as together we live into our longing to embody and help build the beloved community. Will you pray with me now? We celebrate the life and mourn the death of our beloved Minister Emeritus Rob Eller-Isaacs. I'm going to read some words that Jan, Rob's wife, wrote on Facebook last night. Rob loved life. He loved ministry. His passions were many. He was all about change and making the world a better place. He was complex, and sometimes his determination ignored the fact that there were people in his path. But he kept his eyes on the prize no matter what. His commitment to racial justice was lifelong and one of the core commitments of his life. He was committed to serving this faith, Unitarian Universalism. She went on to say that I want to close with his love of family. He worked so hard to live for his family. Anything that smacked of living towards death, he wouldn't embrace until his last days because he was so afraid that we might think he wanted to leave us. He lived for his family, and his love was fierce. And he most especially lived for his grandchildren. She ends by saying he is dancing with the stars. So we hold the memory of Rob. We hold in care and love his family, Jan, Jonah, Jesse, Hannah, Tim, Andy, and the grandkids, and the dogs. And we hold this grief along with so many other griefs and sorrows, angers, and fears that our world is holding right now. And I do want to say that a memorial service is being planned for early this fall. So, may we stand in solidarity with our neighbors here at home and all around the world. May they and we be instruments of a just and lasting peace. And I now invite you to speak aloud or hold in the silent sanctuary of your own hearts names of those you would like to lift today in worship. One of the first. The light's on. Hey! Martha's got a big sign that says, "Turn your mic on." One of the first things I ever learned from Rob when I came here as an intern was how fierce he was about spiritual practice. Yep, we all know, right? And most especially, I remember him stressing to me how important it was to start your day with spiritual practice, to start your day right. And he had a prayer, a body prayer that he did every morning of, I think, his adult life. And I don't remember the exact movements of Rob's prayer, but I, having learned from him over the years, have created my own. And so for our prayer today, I want us to be embodied. I want us to ground ourselves. I want us to be here now in the way that Rob taught us. So you can do this seated. You can do this standing. You can do this from wherever you are unless you're driving. Don't take your hands off the wheel. I'll walk you through it once, and then I'll invite those of you who want to stand. Stay seated so everyone can see right now. And after I walk you through it, then we'll do it together with just breathing, okay? So you're going to start by cupping your hands down here, low on your belly. This is your sacral chakra. This is your center. This is that deep place within you where your spirituality dwells, where your sensuality lives and blossoms. This is where you find your grounding. This is what roots you into the earth. So breathe deep down into your belly. Let the energy gather there at that core of you. And once you're grounded, then you open yourself to spirit. Raise your head, raise your arms, open your chest, open your body, and let that spirit move. Whatever energy is moving, let it move past you. When I was a child living in North Dakota, one of the first ways I experienced God was the prairie wind brushing against my body. And once you've let that spirit touch you, then bring that into your body, into your heart. Integrate that larger love into your own self. Keep breathing. Bless you. And finally, as Rob taught us so well, what we get, we share. And we share it with the world and with each other. So those are the 4 movements. We'll do 2 breaths on each. And I invite those of you who would like to stand now to do that. And I'll start us with a breath down at your sacral chakra, down at your center. Breathe in and out. Another in and out. And open up. bring it in. And share it. Amen.
Good morning. My name is Christoph Meyer-Grimberg, and I'm thrilled to introduce today's offering to you. Your support of the church is an expression of our promise we make to each other and to the world. The contributions we make enables us to do the work we have pledged to do within our church community and out in the world. Each Sunday, the majority of the offering is passed on to community partners with whom we share a common cause. And if you would like to nominate an organization, please fill out the nomination form on Unity's website. Today, the larger portion of the offering will be shared with Beyond Walls, which celebrated its 10th anniversary this year. Beyond Walls is a year-round program for Twin Cities youth, students in grades 6 through 12 from underrepresented communities and underprivileged and economically disadvantaged families. The after-school programming at the University of Minnesota combines educational enrichment, health and wellness through the sport of squash, and if you don't know what that is, come see me afterwards. And civic leadership engagement and development. This unique combination yields excellent graduation rates from high school and college, and motivated learners and inspired leaders. The proceeds of today's offering will go towards general operating funds, such as summer programming, busing, and out-of-state travel for the youth. We have a representative from Beyond Walls here with us. Please stop by the Beyond Walls table in the parish hall after the service and speak to her and find out more about the program and sort of the impact it has. And welcome Robin Perman, who is Beyond Walls Academics and Operations Director. Will the ushers please come forward? My wife, Renee, and I have supported Beyond Walls for many years, and I also serve on Beyond Walls' board, and we hope you will join us to support Beyond Walls. Please give as generously as you can. We dedicate these offerings and ourselves to the greater work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love called community.
Origin of Birds by Nicole Callahan. For hours, the flowers were enough. Before the flowers, Adam had been enough. Before Adam, just being a rib was enough. Just being inside Adam's body near his heart, enough. Enough to be so near his heart, enough. To feel that sweet, steady rhythm, enough. To be part of something bigger was enough. And before the rib, being clay was enough. And before clay, just being earth was enough. And before earth, being nothing was enough. The flowers bowed their heads as if to say, enough. And so Eve, surrounded by peonies and alone enough, wished very hard for something, and the wish was enough to make the pine cone grow wings. The wish was enough to point to the sky, say bird, and wait for something to sing.
God is change, Octavia Butler wrote 50 years ago in her parable books. She created her own religion, Earthseed, and the basis, the premise, the main point of that religion was that God is change. I was just sitting over there, waiting to get up and come over here and looking at these first words of my sermon, and I had this visceral reaction. I'm so tired of the word change. Anybody else? I mean, it's everywhere all the time, right? God is change, Octavia Butler said. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. In 2008, an American writer named Phyllis Tickle wrote a book called The Great Emergence. And in this book, she argued that Christianity is currently undergoing a massive upheaval. And that this massive upheaval is part of a regular pattern. It occurs about every 500 years. And in this pattern, during this time of change, old ideas are rejected and new ones emerge. Ultimately, she says what happens is the old Christianity is refurbished and revitalized into a new, more vital and vibrant and relevant form. She calls this the Great Emergence. And the last time this happened was, of course, the Reformation, when Martin Luther nailed his theses onto the church door. The Great Emergence, a time of radical shift. And this Great Emergence, she says, like all of the ones before, is one of total and all-encompassing change. It is affecting and being affected by everything. All that you change changes you. All that you touch, you change. She says that as we move our way through this upheaval, this mess, this emergence, that what we come out as on the other side has to be certain things in order to survive. She says this is where religion needs to go in our world right now. It needs to be global. It needs to be relational. It needs to be non-hierarchical. It needs to be paradoxical. It needs to be able to hold science and faith at the same time. And finally, it needs to be mystical. There are a lot of ways you can define what emergence is. My favorite is the process of coming into being. The process of coming into being. Something new, something transformed, something unexpected. Around the same time that Phyllis Tickle wrote her book, The Great Emergence, another American author named Brian McLaren wrote a book called Everything Must Change. There's that word again. McLaren took a little bit of a different approach. He said, yes, we are amidst great change. Yes, our world is constantly transforming and evolving and remaking itself, and we are reinventing everything, and we need to be in order to stay vital and relevant. He said, but the church, Christianity in particular, which is what he's writing to and from, has fallen behind. He says, the question we need to ask as people of faith, the question in the midst of this great emergence is, what would need to happen for the followers of Jesus or of any faith to become a greater source for good in relation to the world's top problems right now? What would need to change for religion to be a greater source for good in relation to what's happening right now? Not the issues of top priority 2,000 years ago, Not the politics of the church in 325 at the Council of Nicaea when all the bishops got together and argued their points of view. Not even the well-argued 95 Theses of Martin Luther in 1517. None of those should be taking priority in our faith these days. What needs to happen so that we can let go of these pasts, these histories, these traditions, these things that we've always known, and become relevant again or anew? What needs to happen so that we can understand our faith in today's world? To quote Octavia Butler's Religion, this is tenet number 43. To shape God with wisdom and forethought, to benefit your world, your people, your life, you must consider consequences. You must minimize harm. You must ask questions and seek answers and learn and teach. To benefit your world. So while Phyllis Tickle, in her telling of the Great Emergence, she focused her book really on telling the story of the great emergences of the past, and sort of just at the end said, oh, and by the way, we're in one now. Good luck. Brian McLaren's book, Everything Must Change, was very much deals with the here and now. Right here, right now, where we are at and where our world is at and what it needs. And he says, here's what needs to happen. He asked the question and then he gave us the answer. He says, we need to find a way of freshly framing our old stories. He says we need to seek out wild and radical ways of believing and behaving. We need to be brave, basically. We need to be brave so that we can propel ourselves and our world into a new becoming. About a month ago, Reverend Karen Herring had her big book release, which the title of her book is Trusting Change, right? Something like that. I swear, God is change. I mean, it's just like, it's like Buddhist. Everything is suffering. Life is suffering. God is changed. There you go. That's my wisdom for today. At Karen's book launch, and in the book, if any of you have started or have finished reading it, she tells the story of the butterfly, the caterpillar, cocooning, transforming, metamorphosizing into the butterfly. And she it tells it beautifully. I highly recommend reading it. But she talks about how once the caterpillar is in that cocoon, it breaks down completely. I mean, there is nothing left that you would recognize as caterpillar. It is nothing but goo. Somewhere in that goo is still the caterpillar, and somewhere in that goo is everything needed to become the butterfly. It's all there. It's all been there from the beginning. It will all be there at the end. But there needs to be that transformation, that great metamorphosis, that great emergence. There needs to be that time where we take the old, We don't get rid of it, but we just kind of goo it up, and we let it become something new. We here at Unity, we are in that cocoon, are we not? Are we not? As we wait for another new minister, 2 new ministers to come in August, as we continue to heal from our experiences and all that had happened in this last spring, as we continue to grieve the loss of Jan and Rob, we are goo. We are goo. We are in the midst of change, big change. We're coming out of the pandemic. We're living in a world that's very volatile politically. I mean, we are definitely in a great emergence, a massive upheaval. Here's a difference, though, between us and the butterfly, the caterpillar, the goo. We do not do this on instinct alone, on DNA alone. We have choice. We have insight. We have hindsight. We have foresight. We have power and courage and curiosity. We have community. And we can influence our transformations individually and those of our communities and those of our world. We are not mindless caterpillars. All that we touch, we change. And all that we change changes us. We have the power in that. This isn't meant to be one of those sermons like, hey, suck it up, something new is coming and you're just going to have to deal with it. But something new is coming and we're all just going to have to deal with it. UU minister named Sarah Lammert several years ago wrote a book called Upcycle Your Congregation. How many of you know what upcycling is, right? It's the new fad where you take something old like a milk carton crate and you make a beautiful bookshelf out of it. Something you would have never imagined would come from this and then you make it into this, right? It's all over HGTV these days. She says, upcycle, how to upcycle and why to upcycle your congregation. And what this book is it's a collection of essays from several different ministers and other religious professionals. And the one I want to talk about is written by Minister Reverend Vanessa Southern. She says, here's the most important question for a community, a congregation to ask itself. What is the story we're telling? And is it the only story we know how to tell? She says what we should be asking ourselves is how do we unleash our magic and fierce love onto the world and into the world? She goes on to talk about our subconscious, how our subconscious filters all of the stuff that happens to us, that we intake, everything we hear and see and do and feel and touch and experience, all of that. Our subconscious is constantly filtering that because it needs to, because it would be overwhelming if it didn't. And the thing is, the subconscious needs to know when it's filtering what it should be filtering for. And the way it knows how to do that is because it listens to the stories we're telling. The stories we're telling, our subconscious makes note and says, oh, Shay is interested in buying a red Mazda. I'm going to notice every single red Mazda out on the road for the next 2 weeks. Right? You know how that happens. Oh, Shay has been talking about, getting a puppy. I'm going to pay attention. Every time I see something about puppies, I'm going to notice it. My subconscious says. And then 3 days later, I'm like, wow, I've sure seen a lot of puppies lately. So what Reverend Southern says in her essay is that if we're telling problem-centered stories, if we're telling stories about obstacles, negativity, excuses, victimhood, if those are the stories we're telling, then that's all we're ever going to see. That's all we're ever going to notice. If our story about who we are as a congregation is one of failure, is one of brokenness, is one of anger and fear, then that's what we're going to see when we look at each other. That's what our subconscious is going to find, no matter what. Brian McLaren says, in order for us to emerge vitally and relevantly, we have to reframe our old stories. Change is coming. Change is here. How are we together going to tell that story so that we can emerge from this stronger and more beautiful, more compassionate, more brave? How are we together going to shape this goo into something gorgeous? In the poem that Ray read, everything was enough. Being clay was enough. Being a rib was enough. Being the dirt was enough. Just being was enough until enough was no longer enough. We're at that point, my friends. Enough is no longer enough. We have to embrace this change in order to make it what we want it to be. That's the only way we're going to come out the other side more beautiful and stronger. We can't just pretend that showing up on Sunday and maybe singing the hymns is enough. Right? I'm going to close with some more words from Octavia Butler. This is tenet number 64 of the Earthseed religion. To survive, let the past teach you. Past customs, past struggles, past leaders and thinkers, let these help you. Let them inspire you and warn you and give you strength. But beware, God is change. Past is past. What was cannot come again. To survive, know the past, let it touch you, and then let the past May it be so, and amen. My beloved friends, again, thank you for being here today. Thank you for being part of this beloved community. I encourage you, take your broken hearts and go out into the world and take a look at where we can be brave, where we can act and be strong, where we can share all of the love and abundance that we have been given, and do it in honor of Rob and all those we have lost. May you be at peace. May you go in peace. Amen.